So again, good morning, everybody, and I hope everybody's doing okay. I'm hoping that we were able to get our work yesterday done. Just a reminder of what was due yesterday. The discussions were due yesterday, so your initial post plus 2 replies. I believe I have it set up to like after today, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, I'll double check. I think that's how I have it set up. If after today, and I'll make it if it's not like that. Yeah, so you have till tonight to turn it in late. So you after tonight it will be turned off because again, discussion after a certain point stop being relevant. The discussions are the only assignment I don't really take late, and even then I'm technically taking it late today, but after today, you won't be able to turn it in. So make sure you do your initial post, and then that's the other half of the point. So half of it is from your first response, the other half is from your 2 responses to other people. And if picking up, I apologize. I just got the internet connection is unstable notice, but anyways, so yeah, I just wanted to remind you guys that was due yesterday. Also, you should have put your quote in the Padlet. I will be approving those, so that way you can use that for when you do your brief write today. All right. So, like I said, I haven't had a chance. I've only done probably about out of the 100 I've gotten through about 20 of them. I'm hoping that I'll be able to finish them sometime this week. I am leaving each person individual feedback. So obviously when you have 100 to read, that does take time, even though they're about, 50 pages that I'm reading. So like I said, I'm getting through it, but I did take notes about what we could be doing better, common things I'm noticing. So we are going to be starting the next brief write today. We'll be finishing it on Thursday. So you will I wanted to make sure that I talked about some of the things though, so that way we don't make the same mistakes from the Cassius brief write into the Decius brief write. All right. So here's what that I noticed was topic sentences. And I'm basically going to go through each part. But topic sentences, again, tell the reader what you're going to talk about. So make sure that you're being specific. In this case, what 2 rhetorical strategies will you be discussing? So for the Cassius, again, it's basically the same prompt as the Cassius brief write. The only difference is that in the Cassius brief write, you were talking about how Cassius convinced Brutus to join the conspiracy. The Decius brief write, you're focusing on how did Decius convince Caesar to go to the Capitol. But again, you're still focusing on 2 rhetorical strategies. So I gave you an example here at the bottom. Cassius convinces Brutus, scare tactic, and patriotism. So I said what the character did that I'm focusing on. So he convinced Brutus to join the conspiracy. And then I explained how he used scare tactics and patriotism. So I explained that's all you have to do for the topic sentence. It's super easy. I feel like a lot of you were overcomplicating it and making it have to be this bigger than life statement. It doesn't. You just need to tell me what the. So that's your first sentence. Okay. So obviously, so what I would like you guys to do right now is think about again the prompt for what we're going to be talking about, how Decius convinced Caesar to go to the Capitol using what 2 scare tactics. And I want you to type out a sample in the chat. So remember, if you want to be more, you guys are participating, so I need to see you guys doing that. So I'll give you obviously a few minutes to think about it, but I want you guys to do a sample one in the chat. That's again, I want the whole topic sentence. Yes, I want the first topic sentence. So again, who is Theseus trying to convince? What is he trying to convince him to do? What two scare tactics or not scare tactics? What two rhetorical strategies are you going to be focusing on? And while you guys are doing that, I will be drinking coffee, reading what you guys wrote. And also apparently spilling it on me. Man, I'm on a roll today. So far, I've spilled soup on my shoes for my lunch because apparently the lid wasn't closed. And now I spilled coffee. So awesome start. All right. Joanna, Antoine, Daniel, Jesus. Great. So those are, again, you got your first sentence already. And again, if you just use different rhetorical strategies when you go to write it, and Daniel, just remember it's called logos, not logic. Okay. It's okay. Like I said, this is part of the writing process. We fix it as we go, you know? Hey, Aaron, perfect. And again, if you decide to change it later, you can. Just writing down who. And just remember, I would rather you be wrong because if you're wrong, well, not wrong, but if it can be better, I can tell you how to make it better. If you don't write anything, then I can't help you out. So, like I said, do your best. This is to make sure that we're on the right track. So far, they've all been great, though. So let's just keep it up. Okay, so far I've got Joanna, Antoine, Daniel, Jesus, Josh, Aaron R, and Camilla. So I need to see a lot more responses from you. Again, we're writing a sample topic sentence right now of what our brief write is going to be. So again, look at mine on the screen. Cassius convinces Brutus to join the conspiracy by using scare tactics and patriotism. And all you have to do is substitute Cassius with Theseus. Who is he again? Who is he trying to convince to go to the capital? You know, it's Caesar. What two strategies are you going to use? And again, you don't have to again be right. So let's see. Aaron G, Armando, Brandon, Brian, Chloe, Sierra, Desi, Fernando, Frank, Freddie, Isaac, Julius, Kathleen, Kiloni, Matt, Mia. Again, this is going to be part of attendance, so I know you are here and not wandering away. Ricardo, Roel, and Ryan, I need you guys to be responding. So again, I gave you the sample. It's right there. So make sure that you are in. Okay. I understand that we need to make sure that we are typing. Chloe, remember you need to have two strategies. So ethos and what else would you be discussing? And again, remember you could change it in your actual. This is why we're doing this now, though. We are doing a topic sentence, and again for the brief write that we're going to be writing today, I gave you the sample from last week's or the week before's brief write. And so you guys are just doing that. Okay. I'm having some people say I'm laggy, and I might be a little laggy, although I have a lot of people who have responded. So I'll put it in the chat also. So Chloe, again, if you could type in your new one that has Desi, again, that's the last brief write we did. So we're going to be talking about Caesar, how Decius convinced Caesar to join the conspiracy. So if you could type in the one for this brief write. That's okay, Desi. Again, just try again. Okay, so I got some more people added to the list. So thank you. Let's keep going. Again, one sentence. So Aaron G. Perfect. Aaron, just do one more rhetorical strategy. Again, you have to have two strategies. So logos and what else? It's okay, Sierra. Just finish the So remember, Decius. We're focusing on Decius right now. Okay, Desi, that's better. The only thing that I would suggest is what is he trying to convince him to do? Same thing with you, Brandon. What is he trying to convince him to do? Convincing Caesar to buy him a pony, take him to the fair. What is he trying to convince him to do? There you go. So again, just remember this, like I said, and when we go to do this. So a lot of you did a really good job. So, and Kaylani, remember you need two rhetorical strategies. So logos and what else? Sierra, remember we need to focus on those logos, scare tactics, rhetorical question, patriotism. So you need to make sure that you are doing one of or two of those. Okay. Okay, so for the people I got responding, I got Joanna, Antoine, Daniel, Jesus, Josh, Aaron, Camilla, Chloe, Ricardo, Desi, Aaron, Sierra, and Brandon. Who needs help with this? Who is like stuck? Again, I gave you basically almost like a formula right there. So based off of the last one we did, the only thing you have to do is substitute who's trying to convince who, what are they trying to convince them to do? Decius is trying to convince Caesar to do what, and what two rhetorical strategies are they using? So instead of Cassius, it would be Decius. Instead of Brutus, it'd be Caesar. Instead of the conspiracy, it'd be to the capital, to go to the capital. And maybe, okay. So I'm going to put this in the chat also because again, this is something that hopefully you guys watched. If you didn't watch it, you should have watched it, but I'll give it to you guys again. Touch on it. Okay. So that's the link to the rhetorical strategy lesson. It's about 13 minutes. You don't have to watch every, but just kind of like talk about what the different rhetorical strategies are and how they're used, different examples of it. So hopefully that'll help you. But I mean, again, scare tactics is using fear to motivate somebody to do something. Patriotism is using their love for their country. In this case, it would be Roman country. Obviously, you know, Murica hadn't been invented yet, both in Caesar's time or Shakespeare's time. So, anyway, so that's the topic sentence. So, I just wanted to make the brief right that we have a good idea of what we're writing for the topic sentence. Okay, summary. So, this is the next part after your topic sentence. So, explain what happened in the story so far, but not just one part. So, I noticed a lot of you did thank you, Armando. I'll go ahead and write your name down. A lot of you were just like focusing like maybe just on what Morellus and Flavius did, or maybe you're just on Cassius and Brutus talking, but you completely ignored the third scene where Casca and Cassius are talking about trying to convince Brutus. So anyways, you need to make sure that you're trying to, like I said, you don't have to like address every single thing, but if you look at my example, after Caesar returned from his defeat of Pompey, the people are thrilled to have him return. Some of the Senate, however, are afraid that he wants too much power, begin to form a plan to overthrow him. So even though like I didn't explain like every single thing that happened, I explained basically this is what happened in the first act. They don't like what's happening. They don't like how much power he's getting, and this is what they're doing. So that's basically where we're at. So that's the summary. So again, just this was 2 sentences explaining what happened in the story. So that's what you guys are going to be doing for that. Okay, quotes. One thing that I'm still noticing a lot of people do is they are starting off their sentence with a quote. You should never start off a sentence with just a quote itself. A sentence should never just be a quote by. So if you look at mine, Cassius and Brutus have stepped away from the race to have a private conversation when Cassius begins to complain that Caesar doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty walk under his huge legs and peep about to find ourselves this honorable grave. So if you look here, again, this yellow highlighted part is, again, my own words. I'm explaining what's happening in the story at the moment of the quote. They've walked away, and Cassius is, and what is he doing in this quote? He's complaining about Caesar being like too giant of a person. So that leads us into, oh, and also for this one, it's going to be easy. Everybody's going to have 2.2 because everybody's quotes should be coming Act 2, Scene 2. That's where Decius is convincing Caesar to go to the capital. So everybody should Act 2, Scene 2. Okay. Explanations. I'm going to make myself a little smaller here so I'm not blocking the words. Okay. So how does this quote fit the appeal? So, like, if you're talking about scare tactics, how is this an example of scare tactics? But then you also need to explain why does it convince the other person? Now, granted, my sentences are a little longer, so this might be 3 sentences for some of you, but this is why I'm saying 2 to 3 sentences should be how much you should have after each quote that you do. So, Cassius is using scare tactics by Caesar to a giant towering over them. So I've explained how this is scare tactics, how the quote is scare tactics, and I explain how it is, right? And in words, I'm explaining Brutus to join. Sorry. Can everybody hear me again? Internet. Okay. So the second sentence is he knows that this will convince Brutus because he knows that Brutus is already worried about how much power Caesar has when he said that he feared Caesar being offered a crown. So he knew that he was afraid. So he started playing into his fear to convince him that Caesar was getting too much power. So first sentence was, how did this quote fit the appeal? The second sentence is, why did it convince the other person? So that's what you guys explanations. Okay. Do this first part, but not the second part. Because remember, the whole point of the prompt is how were these strategies effective? Which means they a person. How did these persuade the other person? And then finally, the conclusion. So what? Why is this important to the story? Why is it important to real life? What can we learn from this? You don't answer all three questions. These are just examples of using or different types of questions we could be answering, but we need to be answering something that's like, there is a reason to why we wrote this. There is a purpose to why we wrote this. And there's something that the reader should be taking from what we wrote, something that's going to stick with them. And again, it could be something about the story that's important. It's like, oh, if you didn't realize this, or maybe you never knew this because blank, or maybe if you're ever in a situation where you need to convince somebody, maybe think about what's going to work on your audience. But just something like that, where you're just saying like how these skills are important or how they could be useful, what we can take away from it. So that's essentially it. So again, this is the prompt. What was effective about Decius's use of rhetorical strategies to convince Caesar to go to the capital? Provide two examples. Each example needs to be its own rhetorical strategy. So that's why when you guys did your topic sentences, it's basically going to answer this question. The rest of the paragraph is you just using proof, explaining basically explaining your answer, showing your work in math terms. And again, here is the prompt, or not the prompt, but like kind of an outline for you. So again, we start off with, there we go, the topic sentence up there. Then we go to the summary, then your quote, and introduce a quote, like just remember how I did. So when you introduce a quote, that's this yellow part right here. And remember, you have access to these slides on Canvas. So if you go to the Act 2 slides, you can look at this. If you always provide my slides for you. After your summary, or after your quote, then you're going to explain how did this quote show the rhetorical strategy and why was it convincing to the person? Why did it convince the other person? So in this case, why did it convince Caesar to go to the capital? How was it effective? How did Decius know that it was going to be convincing to him? Then transition. We didn't really talk about the transitions, but just again, you could say something like, while scare tactics worked to convince him, his appeal to pathos, to flattering him, was the major thing that drove him to go to the capital. So again, talk about what you just said and what you're going to talk about next. That's essentially what a transition is. Here's where I was. Here's where I'm going. All right. And then again, finally, introduce your next quote. Then you're going to explain that quote again. Did that the rhetorical appeal Caesar to join the conspiracy? And then finally, conclusion. So what? What am I taking away from this? What am I learning from this? So the other day, again, somebody in class was saying that they didn't respond because they were confused. So I want to make sure that we are not confused about what we are doing, or if there are questions, that I'm answering them so that way we can be sure to be working. So what questions do you have about too far? Okay, so again, the topic sentence. Does anybody have questions about the topic sentence? This is going to be literally the first thing you write. So I don't want to see blank pages. Okay, so no questions about the topic sentence. So we should all be able to write a topic sentence as soon as we are in our breakout rooms. Okay, after that, a summary. So remember, this was the summary. What has happened in Act. So remember, Caesar has. That's going to be coming in Act 3. So we'll be seeing that. Sorry. I had the internet connection is unstable again. So just for remember for the summary that we've read Act 2 so far, so you could just give me a summary of what's happened in Act 2, you know, after you could even say, make a reference to Act 1 saying like after Caesar or after the conspiracy has finally convinced Brutus, or the conspiracy has finally convinced Brutus to join them. And now all they have to do is get Caesar to the place where he's going to be murdered. Okay, quotes. Does anybody have any question about quotes? What about like how to blend their words with the quote? Does anybody need help with that or have any confusion about that? Remember, guys, if you don't ask me questions or don't tell me what you need help with, I can't help you. Your silence means you know what you're doing and that there's no reason for you not to get this done. That's basically what your silence tells me, because there's no other way for me to know. Okay, questions about the explanation. Again, this is where the majority of your points comes from, is your explanation, because without you explaining how your evidence is proving your point, it's kind of just, your opinion. Whereas you explaining how your quote proves your point is closer to fact, at least. All right, and then conclusion, questions about that? Okay. All right, so just a reminder here. So I just gave you the link to all the slides, that way you don't have to look for them. So hopefully that'll help you too. And again, the very last slide is this, what you're looking at here, this kind of like outline, the checklist. Just a reminder though, that again, it does say 2 to 3 sentences on your explanations. Same thing with the summary. But okay, if you don't have any other questions, Daniel, this brief write is due. You guys have about almost an hour to work on this in here. I would say probably it needs to be done by tomorrow, would be my honest opinion about when this should be finished. So that way on Thursday we can try to improve it. Again, this is only 10 sentences. 10 sentences in an hour means you write one sentence every 6. Okay, so I apologize if I'm lagging. I will try to restate it again. Just a reminder that the rough draft is going tonight. You guys have an hour, so that means you have about 5 minutes per sentence. We've already done the first sentence to the most part, and we've talked about it extensively. So it should only take you, again, 5 minutes. And just a reminder too, I'll put one more thing in the chat. I'm going to put the Padlet in. Okay, there's a link to the Padlet. So again, didn't have to be looking for quotes because we already looked for them yesterday. So, if you have any more questions,